Hello, welcome back to CinemaBurger, and I bring you movie reviews from a different perspective. Today we're here to talk about Space Jam: A New Legacy, starring LeBron James, Don Cheadle, and a bunch of Warner Brothers characters, including the Looney Tunes. So I'm gonna try not to talk too much about the first Space Jam movie because while that movie is usually beloved or a cult classic, people hate it, whatever it is, that movie and this movie are different. They do acknowledge the first one a little bit, but it's trying to be its own movie, kind of, maybe not. So, in this movie, we meet a young LeBron James as a kid. He's trying to play basketball, and he has a coach who instills in him, like, you gotta be 100% focused on this if you want to become big in the NBA. And he gets a Game Boy with a Bugs Bunny game on it. His friend shows him, and the coach is like, you don't have time for that, you gotta focus on basketball. So he does, and you see clips of LeBron James in his basketball career over the years. And it cuts to present day, where he's a father, he has two kids. Now, one of his sons is interested in creating video games, but LeBron James wants him to be a basketball player or thinks that he should do that. So, even though, alright, this movie's about an hour and 55 minutes long, even though the Looney Tunes don't show up for like 30 minutes, the stuff with LeBron James is fine because it's trying to establish his backstory. Because in the original Space Jam, they establish a backstory of Michael Jordan and cut to him now, so it really focuses on the main basketball player in this movie, so that part's fine. Now we cut to Warner Brothers Studio, and Warner Brothers has apparently created this algorithm called algorithm, played by Don Cheadle. So Don Cheadle is technically a computer program, and he's pissed off that he's not getting enough recognition for created the Cyberverse. It's where all of Warner Brothers media and characters and everything they own are now. So there's like a world of Game of Thrones, of DC, of Looney Tunes, things like that. And now Warner Brothers calls LeBron James. They want to like pitch him a movie idea. They want to digitize him and put him in like every other Warner Brothers property. And LeBron James kind of thinks that's like selling out, and he doesn't want to do that. And he thinks that this algorithm concept is stupid also. And of course, he can hear that, and he's pissed off. So he's gonna, because I guess he's idolized LeBron James or something. It's kind of confusing. So he wants to like put him in the computer world basically. Before this, LeBron James' son he's gonna go to like basketball camp or whatever, but the son has created this like basketball video game type thing on his phone. It like digitizes people, and that way they can use their moves in the game. So some other basketball players have their images in this game he created. But and he shows LeBron James, and when he tries to use one of LeBron James' signature basketball moves or something, it like glitches the game out or something, and it like deletes it. So they're trying to like establish something here. So at whatever point when LeBron James and the son are at Warner Brothers, before they leave, I guess, algorithm like leads the son and him downstairs to like the server room where they're basically gonna like insert them into the computer world. So once that happens, they fly through, like, you see Warner Brothers properties, like you see Game of Thrones world, DC world, Matrix, I think, old like movies like Casablanca, and of course LeBron James finally arrives in Toon World, but the population says 1 originally, and then when he lands there it goes to 2, so LeBron James is animated now in classic 2D animation, and we see Bugs Bunny, so LeBron James asks, like, okay, Bugs, where's everybody? And he said algorithm, like, brought them over to, like, the Cyberverse or something, so he's like, oh, you guys can be better in this other world, so they go into other Warner Brothers properties. So Bugs Bunny has been by himself for, seems like quite a while. He's has to do all the classic cartoon shtick by himself, like duck season, rabbit season, all that stuff. He has like dummies of the other Looney Tunes so he can talk to them. And that's but then they immediately go off to find the other Looney Tunes. But this idea of like Bugs Bunny being alone for so long and like bonding with LeBron James, that would have been a really good movie, or at least part of something. Like that would have been a cool concept, but they don't do that. Now this movie first of all has 6 writers, and 5 of them have never written a feature film. Only one of them, I forget the name, but they wrote one of the writers of Creed 2. But I don't know, the original 3 writers of the first Space Jam were comedy writers. They had written many famous comedies from like the 80s and 90s. So they were like established comedy writers. The people writing this were not, which will show because a lot of this is just references to Warner Brothers. So basically, Algae Rhythm also kidnaps LeBron James' son and says you have to play a basketball game against me to win your son back. For reasons, I guess, because I don't know, because Algae Rhythm is obsessed with LeBron James. So when Bugs and LeBron go to the Cyberverse to find the other Looney Tunes, first they mention like, okay, all of Warner Brothers characters are in here. Let's get like Superman, King Kong, Iron Giant, and Bugs Bunny's like, they may not want to, and LeBron James is like, why? And Bugs is like, yeah, I don't know. So they find Daffy Duck in like DC World. He's trying to like be Superman with Porky Pig, and it looks like classic like Bruce Timm '90s animation of Superman. What I did like was like in this portion of the movie is just referencing a bunch of Warner Brothers properties for like a good 40 minutes, 30 minutes. What I did like, so they have Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner and Mad Max Fury Road. I did like that reference because that's really funny because, of course, they're both speedy and Mad Max Fury Road is 2 hours of intense driving and great stunts. So that reference I liked. Yosemite Sam was in Casablanca. Elmer Fudd was in Austin Powers 2. Granny was in The Matrix. That one was kind of funny also, not gonna lie. Oh, Sylvester was also in Austin Powers. And they bring back Lola Bunny, of course, and she's voiced by Zendaya for no reason. Because most of the other Looney Tunes are voiced by voice actors. And in the original Space Jam, Lola Bunny was voiced by Kat Soucie, does Phil and Lil from Rugrats and other voiceover. Lola Bunny is trying to become an Amazonian, and you have Wonder Woman voiced by Rosario Dawson, even though they're playing the Gal Gadot live-action music and stuff like that, but Rosario Dawson has voiced Wonder Woman and many other animated features, so that's cool to have that there. So they make references to like, oh, like play a basketball game against something to save the world. We did that already, kinda, and then the joke gets old fast. So Lola will help them because even Wonder Woman was like, you gotta stand up for your values, or like Bugs Bunny has values because he wants to help people and stuff. So they get all the Looney Tunes back, and they're gonna play Algae Rhythm and his son, and LeBron James' son in a basketball game. So they also, with this technology the son created, Algae Rhythm brings like all humans to the Cyberverse to watch this basketball game. And since the son had used other famous basketball players' images for this game, Algae Rhythm turns them into the Goon Squad, of course, because LeBron James will be on the Toon Squad. So there's like 3 or 4 other basketball players with like powers, and they're like 3D animation. It looks terrible. But like, this movie is only full of like half ideas and stuff because a lot of it is just references to Warner Brothers properties. When Algae Rhythm says like, oh, we need butts to fill these seats, and you hear like a lot of rumbling, Bugs Bunny's like, how big are their butts? I'm like, that's kind of funny. But they literally bring every other Warner Brothers character. You see like Iron Giant, all the Hanna-Barbera characters, the Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, like live action. You see like Game of Thrones people, the Matrix people, like the White Walkers. You see Pennywise, the Mask, uh, the Penguin from like Batman Returns. So it's literally just like all these Warner Brother characters in the background. Now they eventually start playing the actual basketball game at like an hour and 20 minutes into this movie, and it's an hour and 55 minutes. Now this is probably like the last time I'll reference the first movie. So obviously in 1996, basketball games or sports video games were not big yet. Now in the year 2021, there's been many sports video games like Madden or NBA 2K. So this basketball game is centered more around the basketball video game instead of a classic basketball game. So while I'm not into that personally, I guess people who like games like NBA 2K will be into that as a basketball game because they do things like style points and things like that instead of just a standard basketball game. Now, like I said, I'm not into those kind of games, so that didn't appeal to me. Maybe it'll appeal to more sports fans, but that's kind of how the game works. But because of that, I feel like there weren't as many stakes because if Ali, Algae Rhythm wins, he'll delete all the Looney Tunes and keep everyone in the cyberverse or something. And also, since Algae Rhythm created this world, he can like cheat, like rewind things, like do whatever he wants. So at one point the score is like 1,000-0 or something. So halfway into the game, they're doing like a pep talk, and it's like, "Oh, I found Michael Jordan in the audience or something," and all the Looney Tunes are like, "Oh my God, Michael Jordan is back!" And then it's like a shadow, and all of a sudden it's Michael B. Jordan, and all the Looney Tunes like, "Oh wait, you got the wrong Michael Jordan," and Michael B. Jordan's like, I'm just watching the game, like go Looney Tunes or whatever," and then he leaves. Now I read that the director Malcolm Lee wanted to get Michael Jordan in the movie as a cameo. At the end of the movie, it would have been Bugs showing Michael Jordan the movie. It's like, "What do you think?" or something like that. But I guess either Michael Jordan didn't want to do it, or I don't know. But basically, they tried to get Michael Jordan to have a cameo. Didn't work out. Whatever. So of course, the good guys, the Looney Tunes, win the game. Now, while they're playing the game, the Looney Tunes are turned into like 3D modern like 3D animation, and it looks like really bad. They don't look good in 3D. But they trying to figure out how to win the game, and they're basically like, "Oh, why don't we do like that special move that LeBron James can do because it would glitch the game out and it won't let Algae Rhythm like control the game anymore." So LeBron was like, "Oh, I'll do it since I'm not a cartoon character or whatever. I'm a human. I won't get deleted." And the son's like, "Oh, I don't know." But but instead Bugs ends up doing it, and he's all glitchy or whatever, and he kind of basically dies as the movie ends. But then it cuts to like the real world because like everyone was saved. LeBron and his son get out of the cyberverse or whatever, and he sends the son off to the E3 like video game camp, and then all of a sudden Bugs Bunny shows up because earlier he established like, "Oh, I'm a cartoon character. I can't get hurt or die," which is kind of lazy writing because even his like death in the end of the movie didn't like feel like it had any weight to it, but just having him show up there later was like, "Oh, there's nothing, there's no consequences, like I'm fine." So like the movie ends or whatever, but the problem with this movie was it was just alright. It was called, first of all, it's called Space, and you even see like the aliens from the first Space Jam in the audience one time. But the problem with this movie is, alright, to use the name Space Jam: A New Legacy, whatever, but the reason the first one was called Space Jam was because the Looney Tunes were like playing basketball against aliens from outer space, and this one they're playing against a computer program. So there's no reason to even call it Space Jam at all. And if you're trying to do like a human and a cartoon animation integration movie, at the time the first Space Jam came out was 1996. There, the only really other movie to really do that was Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that was like 1988. So that, and also with the first Space Jam, it started out as like commercials, and they wanted with Bugs Bunny, Michael Jordan, and then I don't know. That movie was like a product of the right things happening at the right moment. I feel like it was about basketball, it was about the Looney Tunes, but Space Jam: A New Legacy was about like selling out, I guess, which is kind of what the movie does. So I don't know if that's clever or just bad because it didn't feel like a movie. The Looney Tunes are kind of there, but they could have had that better idea of like Bugs Bunny being alone in the Looney Tune world. But it's basically just an AI gone rogue, and that idea's been done to death. Don Cheadle is, even though he's kind of chewing scenery as the villain, he's still like just kind of boring. LeBron James as an actor was fine. Like his stuff was okay. Like him trying to instill the values he learned as a kid or what he was forced to learn on his son. That's a good message. Like you got to do what you want to do. You can't just do what your parents want. Fine, that's a good message. Whatever. But just having half this movie be references to other Warner Brothers properties is just lazy and stupid. Like, if you wanted to do a Space Jam 2, like, have it be about the aliens or something, because they're not in space. And technically not even in the Toon world, because it's all on a computer. First of all, this movie is really boring, also. So I'd have to give the Space Jam: A New Legacy, like, I don't know, like a 1 out of 5 burgers. Like, even if you haven't seen the first one in a long time, like just isn't a good movie on its own. And it had 6 writers. I mean, I know the new thing in Hollywood is to like remake, reboot, reference other things, but I mean, and that sometimes works, but it's too much, and this is a good example of that. There's a problem of Hollywood not having new ideas, so they got to resurrect something from over 20 years ago that worked back then, and they're trying to rely on like nostalgia, but obviously this is for kids movies. Like the movie references they're making, like kids have never seen Casablanca, probably never seen The Matrix, Austin Powers 2, Game of Thrones. They know the name, but they probably don't never watch the show. At least they shouldn't be watching it. Like they know DC stuff and they know LeBron James, but and then maybe they know the Looney Tunes because there's new shows on HBO Max and stuff. But if you're trying to bring in the crowd from the first movie, they're going to be disappointed because this isn't a movie. It's really just references and half plots. So I don't recommend Space Jam: A New Legacy. Even if you are like a big LeBron fan, his acting is fine. He's never really acted, I guess. He produces like a documentary, I think. And he sponsors, I think, people for like the Sprite ads or like to make their own short Sprite films, so that's good for him. But like Don Cheadle was lazy also, I guess. I don't know if there was a lot of ad-libbing. The Looney Tunes were fine, I guess, but they could have done better. This is the ultimate problem with sequels that come out more than 20 years after the original. They're trying to cash in on the success of the first one, even though it's too little, too late, because it's been too long. Alright, so that's all I gotta say on this. We'll be back soon with more movies. I'm Scott Berger, and I'll see you next time.